This episode is sponsored by Wilkes Consulting, a locally owned firm with expertise in government relations and liquor license consulting. No one knows Northeast PA like our experts who were born and raised here. Because we are local, we provide a personal and professional relationship you won't find anywhere else. If you want to keep up with the latest COVID restrictions at your bar or restaurant or get in front of a state representative, then give us a call. We guarantee we will get you a fast and accurate answer. Call or text us today at 570-606-9206. That's 570-606-9206. Hi, I'm Bill Corcoran Jr., and I'm your host for the On the Stacks podcast. Today, I'm chatting with Fred Maier, co-founder and vice president of the Susquehanna Brewing Company. What's up, podcast? Episode 33. Welcome to the On the Stacks podcast. Fred, how are you today?
Very good. How about yourself, Bill?
Really, really good. I'm excited you brought some good beers here.
You know, have beer will travel.
Yeah.
It's kind of implied when I come.
Yeah. Darren tried making us drink them really fast.
Finish that. I'm like, no.
Yeah, we didn't even start the podcast yet.
Yeah, that's the problem. You get marbles really quickly.
Yeah. So, well, thanks again for joining me today. Can you tell me just a little bit about your background? Going back to, you're a Penn State grad, which I absolutely love, by the way. So let's kind of take me back to the early days of Fred and kind of take it from there.
Well, fast forward now. I'm born and raised in the area. Kind of joking, like probably about 50 feet behind me is where I had my first job at 16 years old. So it was kind of like a homecoming down here. I knew exactly how to get here. And I've literally been working in the beer business for over 26 years now. It's all I've done. It's as fun of a thing as you could do. But I started off literally, sweeping floors and scrubbing toilets and following trucks around and forklifts and then cleaning the trucks and doing all that. So I really got to see it from the ground up, working in a distribution, and then went to college for marketing to sell beer. And then I graduated and I sold beer. And then I went to all the local stores and retailers and did that. And then I was Miller brand manager. And then, one thing my dad has always told me, being the descendant of Stegmaiers, nothing's permanent. So the business came and went. And thank God I got to know so many people, because then we sold off the distributor and founded Susquehanna Brewing Company in 2010.
So how old were you when you got, a little into the beer business?
I was 16. It was the first time I worked, but we kind of have a saying, like we call it dinner table knowledge. You're always talking about it. It's such an accessible product that every commercial comes on, and now they're cool places to go to eat. So I talked to my daughter loves going to breweries. She loves Trogs. Dad, you should do this. I'm like, I love Trogs too. They've got a little bit of a head start and a little size on me. I'm like, duly noted, sweetheart. Dad's working on it.
I was gonna say, do you guys drink other beer?
Oh, have to. Yes. Yeah. Well, you have to
test the market.
Exactly. We call it market research.
Yeah.
I've been telling my mother I've been researching the market for too long.
Yeah. So you went to college for marketing specifically?
Yep.
And then you mentioned about marketing for beer. How did it all?
I think one of my favorite things about marketing, when you hear the term marketing, you think of commercials and you think of that. Marketing is extremely multifaceted, and it's even expanded beyond that. Sales is marketing. Packaging is marketing. Placement is marketing. It's not just advertising. Advertising is one small part of it. And it's fun because, I get paid to run my mouth all day. It's all I do is talk to people. I talk to our customers, but we have contract customers. I talk to people that sell our beer. And I've had the opportunity to make thousands of friends over the years. And that's what I love about what I do.
So how did SBC get started?
Well, it's kind of, I don't know if you could get, I am the great grandson of Charles Stegmaier. So Charles Stegmaier emigrated from Germany in 1849. And once you do it, it's like a calling. It's like being a priest. There's no other thing you want to do. So he actually he moved to Wilkes-barre in 1840 and moved to Philadelphia in 1849 and slowly worked his way up and founded and got a job opportunity with it's actually still here, Reichert and Weaver. Nobody's asked me that question in a while, Bill. I used to be pretty good at that spiel. And started working at Reichert and Weaver, and the remnants of the brewery are right by the courthouse. in about 1851. Went backwards a little bit, went to Philadelphia. 1857, founded Stegmaier Brewing Company. That lasted till 1974 when my dad closed it. He went to work at the Lion. Again, what are we, about eighth of a mile away from the Lion?
It's right down the road.
Worked that, said, stayed in beer, loved it. Said I really wanted to do something. At the time, the American brewing industry was cratering. We were down to about 46 breweries. But the wholesalers, the national brands were coming on. Just like, if you think about it, Levi's, Chevy, and Marlboro, that's all anybody wanted. The more alike we were, the more we worked together. Then all of a sudden, the worm slowly turned and we started expressing individuality through brands. Craft beer got hot. I like this beer. Did you try that one? I wear, Guess jeans. You start thinking of things throughout our lives, and, like one brand didn't fit all anymore. So we got out of the wholesaling industry and said, you know what? We could start this brewery. Let's do it.
So that's when you said, I'm gonna start.
Let's jump in 2 feet. I'll never forget the day my dad looked at me. He goes, "You really want to start a brewery?" I'm like, "Yep, let's do it." So, and the mass beer industry is becoming so consolidated. It was a very fun, family-oriented business for a long time. And then all of a sudden, like, small wasn't good enough. I want to say results. They wanted size. They wanted to squeeze costs out of everything. So the bigger your wholesaler, the less you had to make per case of beer. Well, that works. But then everything got so big that it lost its personality, which is when we kind of couldn't, the reason you're in business is to make money, and looked at it and the numbers made sense. Said, okay, it's, like I said, nothing's permanent. Anheuser-Busch wasn't permanent. Stegmaier Brewing Company wasn't permanent. This wasn't permanent. The wholesaling days weren't permanent. So now it was, let's make some beer again.
So you guys have this slogan, Brewed Right.
Yep.
So where did that come from?
Working with, again, another local person. Most of the great ideas are kicked around. We didn't set out to have a good slogan. We just
came about.
It just came about because everything we wanted to do was, my dad grew up working at Stegmaier. And in 1847, it was one of the largest breweries in the country. The family basically got, fat and rich and took their eye off the ball. And slowly but surely, they made some bad business decisions. By the time my dad started working in, I want to say 1965, it was like a slowly dying breed. They didn't have the money to make upgrades. So he's like, we had a machine shop that worked 24 hours a day just to replace stuff. So something that was 20 years ago, state of the art, was now 20 years old, and they couldn't keep up with things. So he just worked. He's like, if I'm going to do this, we're going to do it right. So we've brought in German engineers from Bavaria. We brought in packaging experts. So it was literally like we just did it right. Everything, that's what my dad said. He goes, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it right. And that's what it was. So everything about it, like, we'd never cut corners. We bring the bulk of our ingredients from all over the world. A bulk of our malt comes from Bamberg, Germany. They grow they literally make the best barley, the best malted barley in the world. So it's kind of one of the fun things I get to do is watch the exchange rate and bring things in. So we just really tried to do everything right. That was it.
Well, that's really cool. So did your dad kind of help you in the beginning with like some of this knowledge?
No, he's the president of the company. He goes to work every single day. So it's literally me bouncing stuff off of him. And we have a partner, Mark Noble, who has an extremely interesting story. It's like his family founded their wholesaler right after the repeal of Prohibition. Mark grew up in the on-premise, worked his way through wholesaling. My family had the brewing and wholesaling. So, between Mark and my dad, they have 80 years experience between the two of them.
Yeah, so kind of starting it was a little, I'm not going to say that it was easy, but you guys had that.
Well, that's kind of funny you said that. We thought it'd be easy.
Yeah. Because your family had the knowledge.
What we do.
Yeah.
We're wrong. Manufacturing on such a small scale was a punch in the face and an eye-opener.
Why was it so difficult?
Because like that first case of beer costs you an awful lot of money, and you start from zero. When you work with Miller, Yingling, Pabst, all these giant national brands we got to work with, they have, so much muscle and marketing weight. We started from zero. And zero doesn't pay the bills, and you kind of tell yourself you're going to lose money, but it's different when you do it, until you start getting, you don't feel yourself getting momentum for a while and everything. There's a delay in everything. Until you turn around, you're like, all right, that wasn't that bad. And then, 6 months goes by, like, all right, it's getting there. And a year goes by and you're like, I think this is going to work. But it took everything took longer. It took a little bit more effort, a little bit longer. It was just, and the market, the business was shifting so fast. When we broke ground, when we had the idea, there were 1,000 breweries. When we broke ground, there were 2,000 breweries. By the time we started selling beer, there were 4,000 breweries. Now there's 9,000 breweries.
And what year was this when you started?
We kind of hatched the scheme in 2009. Sold the brands off in 10, started selling beer in 12, and the world was changing so fast that any decision you made, and beer, it's, 5,000-year-old industry. People have been making this for a long time. It was moving so quickly, and we just, felt like you couldn't make a right decision. Like, oh, we're going to do this. We built this state-of-the-art facility when that stopped being cool. People wanted a 3-gallon brew house that never made beer the same way twice. And they wanted to go to a bar. They wanted to see what it was. And we kind of didn't see that coming. And then Pennsylvania changed their laws that allowed us to do that too. So when we started, you were one of two things. You were a production brewery or you were a brew pub. There was no in between. And about 4 years ago, Pennsylvania said, you know what, brewers, Pennsylvania is the number one craft beer producing state in the country. And the legislature and the government really said, we're going to support you with, if you invest in your company, you could have some of your excise tax credits back. You could sell pints of beer. So we're really allowed to do anything. We have self-distribution rights. We could co-op. We could work with other breweries. So I could make something at my brewery and sell it to your brewery, no strings attached. They just let the transfer rights. But that happened in the last 5 years. So as the world was turning, Pennsylvania actually reacted very quickly, and it was a game changer for us.
Wow. So what made you guys choose Pittston and the location you're in? Is there a significance or a reason why?
Well, so another reason, if you remember, we're in a recession now, but in 2008, there was a pretty good recession. And we sold off our brands, and we were sitting on 11 acres with 55,000 square feet of warehouse space. No one needed anything like that. So when we started this idea, we're like, we have the spot. And there's two things. One, centrally located for Northeastern Pennsylvania. And one of the things that, like, serendipitous things that went so right, we have fantastic brewing water at the brewery. It is clean. It is soft. It is phenomenal process water. And it's kind of one of the things that why pizza's so good around here. We all have, the valley basically gets surface water. So I live in the back mountain where it's groundwater, and groundwater gets, it's full of minerals. There's, it just has a different chemistry. Beer loves soft water, and it is in abundance in the Wyoming Valley. So we took the water sample. The German engineers had the water analyzed. They're like, something's wrong. They missed something. It's too good. They took another sample, another lab, same results. It's fantastic water.
So they thought it was like too good to be true.
It was too good to be true. Like, it's not that good. And we're like, no, it is. Turns out it is.
Like almost like you struck gold.
Yep. Yeah. And I love lager, and lager likes soft water. Ales actually, but it's easier to change your water chemistry than it is to clean it. So it was like one of the bright spots. So, we have plentiful, abundant, fantastic water. And that's the number one ingredient in beer. So we're like, all right, perfect.
So what was the first beer you guys came out with?
Golden Cold Lager. That was
staple.
A staple. And if you think about it, Fred Maier, Cold and Gold from the Poconos were like Golden Cold from, Brooksby.
Yeah.
It was just a fun thing. Like, that was, Fred Maier was known for a lot of their fun advertising, ring-a-ding-ding, Cold and Gold. Like, they had some great advertising in the 40s and 50s and 60s. So just somebody threw the name out there, like, and I wanted to make a beer that Charles Stegmaier and any German would say, like, that's good. That's really good. and it's a Munich Helles. It is it is the staple of Southern Germany. And so that was our first beer. And it's a bronze medal winner at the Great American Beer Festival. And that was probably, I'll never forget when we got that phone call. I was on my way to a Penn State game and I almost missed the exit because I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
So my favorite beer won a medal at the Great American Beer Fest. That was a thrill.
That's really cool. So, talking about the beers themselves, I mean, you guys obviously have a lot of different beers, and we'll talk about those in a minute. But if you had one favorite, I know this is asking like picking a favorite child, but if you had to say, which is your favorite?
I'd still have to say 12 months out of the year, it's Golden Cold. Then I get very seasonal. Like I love. And wink, wink, I drink more than just beer. Depends on what it's doing outside. So right now, Oktoberfest, it's just a nice, rich, it's all German malt. There's Munich malt. It's just a heavier beer. We make our toboggan in the winter. But if I had to pick one full-time, top is Golden Cold. 2 and 3 are Shady Spot and Oktoberfest.
All right.
In no particular order.
And what are we drinking right now?
Well, right now I'm kind of deviating from the plan. We are drinking our NEIPA. It's a rotating series of hazy IPAs we make. That's always, grain bill's always the same. Process is always the same. We just screw around with the hop dosing, varieties. Sometimes we use different cryogenic hops. There's so many hops. It's kind of really become taken over the craft beer world. But there's, hops used to go into the kettle. Now there's so many different opportunities. The longer you cook hops, the more the properties change. There's no hops in the kettle on this. So they're very low bitterness, high aromatics. And so really the hops take the center stage of these beers. And
very
so this
tasty.
Is any IPA number 8. Like you said, I'd be lying. I make up a bunch of hop names, but I'd be full of it. So I'm not even going to try to. It's just it's our take on the New England style hazy craze right now, and just keeping them fresh and trying different things.
Very tasty.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So tell me about some of the other beers. You guys obviously, we're in October right now, so obviously the fall beers. But talk a little bit maybe about those and some other seasonal. What else do you guys do?
Well, one of the things I think we knock out of the park are, most people when they think of Susquehanna SBC, they think of Shady Spot, Blueberry, Raz the Roof. We make a phenomenal fruit beers, and I think there's 2 reasons for that. The base beer is a wonderful American wheat ale, so it's basically a Hefeweizen malt bill, but we use a neutral English ale yeast to really, the yeast brings a lot of characteristics into beer. This yeast doesn't, but it soaks up any fruit we put into it. And our master brewer, Bo Baden, has the greatest supply of fruit. I mean, it comes in, you could put this stuff on your ice cream, on your pancakes. It's so fresh and rich. But whatever, we've actually talked to the supplier, as long as, we need our lemon for Shady Spot, we need our grapefruit for Sunny Spot. We started making Eat a Peach Ale in honor of the Peach Festival to sell up there. The peach juice, it's so rich, and it's 100% peach juice. Orange is the new ale, the blood orange. I mean, it comes in 55-gallon drums, and you couldn't fathom the cost of it. We kind of laugh like, oh, it better be good. And it is. And it's something that I think we unaware just became known for, but it really comes down to just the quality of ingredients. Like, it's a great beer, but using the best ingredients makes the best beer.
Yeah. So like, what is your day-to-day like? What is your role? What do you do? Tell me a little bit about your behind the scenes.
Well, we do, so there's 2 things. One thing I like about Susquehanna Brewing Company, there's really 3 businesses involved. There's our own brands, there's our retail or tasting room, but then we also do a fair amount of contract brewing, co-packaging for people. I handle all of our packaging. I really am a go-between for our contract customers. And other than that, whatever needs to be done. We were just commissioning a can cartoner. I don't know if you think of like the fiberboard can wraps that you buy a 4-pack can in. And It didn't really work very well for the first few days. So I got to stand there for hours and reach my hand into this machine and pull the 4-packs out and pull. And so I do the really low skilled jobs too, because I don't know how to work any of the machines, but I have a pulse and I pay attention. So like they'll literally put me on a line to just push cases. Okay, all right, that conveyor belt's fixed, Fred. You could go now. Things like that. But it's really just handling like anything that needs to be done. That's another thing what I like. It's very dynamic. Today I had the opportunity of fighting with a customer, not a customer, a supplier of ours for being overbilled. And, so my blood pressure went up about 20 points before I walked out the door and I still didn't win. So kind of proved a point to me, keep it cool a little bit. And I don't lose my cool very often. But, working with our tasting room manager, does he have everything he needs to make it work? It's getting colder now. We have a 3,000 square foot tent, compliments of Big Top Rep, not compliments, they charge us for it, but they take great care of us with the tent. So do we have enough heaters? Put the sides on. What are we going to do? How are we going to, this is a very weird retail era right now where people don't want to be inside. And we were lucky enough to be able to expand quickly out into a parking lot that we put a tent up and made it feel very homey. But now it's October in Northeastern Pennsylvania, so we know how that goes. So now we're working on people feeling comfortable, like giving them enough space inside the brewery. So using the brew house, it's all licensed. You can come hang out. We have a giant high definition projector that we put, Penn State football. That's why I wanted it. But any football game can go on it. College on Saturdays, NFL on Sundays, and we've been fortunate. There's a lot of rules right now, and we need food. We don't serve food. So how do we make that go? And making a partnership real quickly with the Lunchbox food truck, that he's there, making sure our customers have food on the table. It's always, I feel like I'm putting out fires half the time and starting them the other half of the time.
So what would you say is the favorite part of what you do?
That it's dynamic. When Forrest Gump, it's like a box of chocolates, man. You just never know what you're going to get. Yeah. Some days are boring, some are great, some are hard. It's fun.
Some days you're pulling 4 bottles at a time off the line.
And, we hand packed for years, so you just don't know what you're going to walk into.
Yeah.
When things go real well, you kind of go like, wow, that was a kind of boring couple weeks of work. Nothing happened.
Yeah. So what, anything new coming up that our listeners might be able to try, or anything new coming to the brewery?
I think one segment we've never played in is the sour segment, and we're finally bringing one out. It's called Cannonball, a cranberry gosa, 6.5%. It is a sour style ale made with a little bit of sea salt, so it's tart and dry. But I'm actually excited. I'd be lying if I've ever had it. So it's one thing I love about working with our master brewer. He has so much experience on everything. He's born and raised in Scranton. Pretty typical of the story. I'm leaving here. Went to brewing school in California. Got to work at Pyramid, who was at the time one of the biggest breweries in the country. Lived in Berkeley, California. And then, life changes. Their brewery they were too big for the era and they never changed. Next thing you know, he's in Baltimore brewing beer. He's in Allentown making beer. And lo and behold, he's back in Northeastern Pennsylvania making our beer.
So how did you guys, not to interrupt, but how did you guys connect?
It is a small world. So just threw the feelers out, and our previous brewer was a great guy, Guy Hagner. He's a great guy, but had an opportunity to kind of go do a smaller scale. Like we were in the process of, I don't want to say blowing up, but we were growing pretty quickly. And he just made a decision that this isn't what I want to do. He's like, I want to be hands-on. I don't want to manage people. So he gave us his couple weeks and said, listen, I'm leaving. I'm going to go work at a small brew pub. And I think it took us 3 days to find Bo. We asked a couple of friends like in the industry, and 2 of them came and said, I know who you're going to call. And I don't think we were without a brewer for 48 hours. He kind of took the job, and within a day was already getting his hands dirty at the place and scheduling things and stepping in. And so he's worked on, 100-barrel brew systems. He's worked on 15-barrel brew systems. He's worked from coast to coast for 20 years. And that's when we kind of come up with these ideas. He's like, what do we want it to taste like?
I was going to say, like, how do you guys come up with some of the new flavors? How have you came up with, some of the other ones that you guys have done? And how do you guys...
It's an idea, and Bo makes it happen. There's no experimentation. What do you want? And it's, boom, appears before you.
That's what he just
knows. I mean, so there's really two sides of brewing. It's, I want to say the art side is the idea, and you have to use it. He has taste buds and a smell, a nose that would blow people's minds. So like that's the art side. But then he sits down with his calculator as an experience and say, oh, you want a 6.5%, ghost style with cranberries, 2 weeks later, here you go.
And who does the taste testing?
There's everybody, but there's like 4 or 5 of us that are over the years. Tasting beer is, learning to taste, it's really a learned skill. So I kind of take grains of salt. I love people's passions and everything, but if you're not tasting bad beer, like you have to know, like you have buy off flavor kits, like you sit around like, and I am a rube. I'm a novice when it comes to this stuff. And I've gotten to like hang out with hop growers. They have great noses. And brewers, and you start to, and the lab guys, and you start to kind of smell and like, all right, I could taste that. There's certain things I'm not good at. There's certain things I could pick up from 6 feet away. Like we were talking before, oxidized beer. Oxidation it's kryptonite to beer, and it completely alters it. Our brewer picks up it's called diacetyl really well, butterscotch, buttered movie theater popcorn. It's not a good flavor. There's other flavors like DMS, which are like creamed corn. But you need some of that style. You want like DMS and a nice German lager, but in really small quantities. And then you cross that parts per million threshold where that's all you taste. So there's a fine line, and it's really comes down to, fermentation control. And like, that's what, I don't even have to worry about that. I've really haven't lost a moment's sleep in years because of Bo.
So you guys, you taste test the beer, and like, what do you take a vote? Like, how does it work? Like, you just drink it and be like, this is it. This is the one.
Yeah. Now, and like I said, we don't experiment. Our experimentation, people laugh like, well, we're doing a pilot batch. We are doing our pilot batch, 50 barrels.
Wow.
We're making 600 cases, and it's going to be good. And if we don't like it one time, I will admit, we dumped it down the drain. That's our experimentation. That stinks. You never know what happened because it never gets into the market. We never push it through the market. It's gone. It's happened once.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So it really blows my mind. And I'm like, you know what? That is good.
Yeah.
Like, how'd you do that? Like, Oktoberfest, like you style, the more you make it, the better you get at it. But that's the fun thing. Like, nobody knows what any IPA number 8 is supposed to taste like. So there's a difference between quality. Like I said, like some people don't like Pilsners, but my Pilsners are my favorite style. They don't hide flaws. You could hide a flaw in a double IPA, but a good brewer is going to pick out what you did wrong. So the taste, there's a difference between like quality and what you want it to taste like. You know what I mean? Like, all right, that's not what I intended, but it's good beer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you guys obviously are in a ton of bars and restaurants and stores all over the place. Like, who is an ideal customer for you?
See, that's just it. Everybody doing what we do. I mean, there are bigger accounts, but I think we want to toe that line between being a craft brewer and being a local brewery. Being a local brewery, I want to be on tap at the corner bar room. I want you to come in. I think that's what I love about the variety of beers we make. We make, I can't wait. We have a 1-year aged port barrel triple bock coming out. That is it's probably about 10, 11% alcohol. That's not for everybody. I'm excited. That's for your higher end beer bars. Shady Spot, Golden Cold on draft. That'll fit any corner bar room, American Legion, whatever. We want to sell beer to everybody. We don't cater to one segment. We cater to Northeastern Pennsylvania.
So how far is your reach? I mean,
we are in PA, Maryland, and Virginia, but 80% of our beer is sold within 20 miles of where we're sitting. It's just we've worked hard to kind of become entrenched in the local area. I mean, if you can't tell, the Pennsylvania branding on our bottles, I mean, it's a map of Northeastern PA on Oktoberfest. It's the Pennsylvania license plate on our hazy. It's important to us.
Yeah. So why is that? And my next question is, what is your favorite thing about NEPA?
My wife's from Philadelphia, and it's kind of funny, like, we're not the hippest, most dynamic area, but in 2 hours, I could be anywhere I want to be. I could be in New York City. I could be in downtown Philadelphia. I could be in Washington, D.C. So I could get anywhere. I like to be outside. I have 3 kids. I can let my kids roam around outside like stray cats, and I know they're safe. It's one of those things. I think it is an extremely down-to-earth, chill area that allows you to do anything you want. And things are attainable here. We were looking up, my dad was actually born in North Hollywood, and we just looked up his house, just as an example. And he's like, it's an 1,800 square foot single level ranch for $3 million.
Oh my God.
And that's exactly, how do people live? I say that like, California's cool and all, but how do you move there?
Yeah.
How do you start a life in a place like this, in a place like that?
It's crazy.
So, I mean, that's what I like. I mean, like, I like people are down to earth. I think that's my number one thing. It's a chill, down to earth place that I can do whatever I want.
Yeah. So how about some other things going on at the brewery? You guys do events. Are you guys still doing some events? I know with COVID restrictions, it's probably a little tough.
We're happy to be open. That's no events. We canceled our Oktoberfest. Okay. We can't really, we are just trying to, they said 6 feet for social distancing. We gave people 8 feet. We were just able to, we're thrilled to be pouring pints of beer. So we had to learn really quickly because we were like a cafeteria. You walked up to the bar, there was no table service, but now all of a sudden we had to become waiters and waitresses. We had to become servers, not just bartenders. And that it ruined some of the sociability of it, because everything's cold. People come up to the bar, no, sir, we'll come to you, single-use things. So we've had to learn on the fly, but no, we haven't been able to do anything. We used to have a ton of cornhole events. We used to have a lot of charity events. We used to go do, one thing I used to do was our offsite. So Pennsylvania allows us to travel with our license, and we have 2 awesome beer trailers. They canceled Rock in the River this year. That was so much fun. If anybody missed it this last year, put it in your calendars for next year, because it was one of the greatest uses of the riverfront landing. It was awesome. It was something like, I can't tell you, I've had hundreds of people come to me. I'm like, I can't believe this is wilkes-barre. It was the most perfect setting, 3 weekends in a row. Well, I don't think anybody saw it coming. And, that was Dave Pedri and Tony George and those guys and everyone else involved were like, we're going to try this. I'm like, we could do this. Everybody said, Ted Wampole, like guys are like, I've seen this happen all over. Why can't we do it? And they kind of dipped their toes in the water. And I think that's what made it so special, because the first week was awesome and nobody saw it coming.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, let's not set the bar too high. Every week got better and better. And the last week we actually got overwhelmed. There were so many people came, and like we couldn't pour beer fast enough. Like we brought a 10 spigot trailer with 30 halves in it, and like we couldn't handle everybody. We're like, this is fantastic.
That's cool.
But I'd rather deal with that than nobody coming to your party. It was great.
Yeah. So how can our listeners learn more about SBC?
Come on down to the brewery. Go to your local bar, local distributor, anywhere. I mean, you could join us on Facebook. We have an email list, but the best way is to walk through our door. I've said that before. I think people grossly underestimate what we're up to in Pittston. We walk in, and I mean, it is, shiny stainless steel from all over the planet and all over the country. That is just, it's a lot of fun. We try to do something for everybody down there. We take everybody, all shapes and sizes.
Cool. Is there anything I didn't ask you that I should have?
I don't think so. I was just saying, like, this is fun. Like, haven't had the chance to do this stuff in a while. Everything's been shut down. And that's what, I'll never forget our first event. And, I never had to do public speaking. I hated, I'd get up with sweaty palms giving a speech in high school and college. And it was almost like a Three Stooges shtick. Everybody took a step backwards but me. And I turned around and they just threw me into it. And it's like, but I've gotten to love talking to people. So this is my favorite part of the business that's been shut down since March 15th. So no, I'm just happy to be here, Bill.
Yeah. Well, no, thanks, Fred. Thanks so much for obviously for supplying the beer today, and really cool learning a little bit more about SBC and some of the behind the scenes things that you do and that you guys just do in general. And thanks again for joining me on the Stacks podcast. SBC, Fred Maier. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
If you'd like to learn more about the On the Stacks podcast, be sure to search the hashtag #OnTheStacks on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and leave a review. We'll catch you next time on the Stacks.